Hours ago, history made at Enterprise Center in downtown St. Louis, where the Sweet 16 of U.S. figure skating was announced. Good evening, I'm Mike Bush. The roster is made up of the world's best. And in less than 4 weeks, those figure skaters will be competing for gold at the Winter Olympics in Milan Cortina. The men's team includes the quad god, Ilya Malinin, who captured his 4th consecutive figure skating championship this weekend. He'll be joined by Andrew Torgashev and Maxim Naumov, who gave an emotional performance in honor of his parents, killed in last year's tragic mid-air collision over the Potomac River that devastated U.S. figure skating. On the women's side, Amber Glenn leads the roster after achieving a record-breaking score here in St. Louis. She'll be joined by the comeback kids, Alyssa Liu and Isabel Levito. And the roster also includes the ice dancing duo of Chalk and Bates, who captured a record 7th U.S. title this weekend. We know the members of the U.S. Olympic team had exceptional scores this weekend, but how did St. Louis score as the host city for this historic moment? 5 on your side's Laura Barcheski wraps up the week with a report card on a major boost for downtown.
It was an exciting week in St. Louis hosting the U.S. Figure Skating Championships at Enterprise Center.
Just absolutely ecstatic with what this week was like for St. Louis. It was thrilling, it was spectacular, and our region stepped up and delivered.
Thousands of people traveled from all over to witness the selection of the U.S. Figure Skating Olympic team.
Well, I actually traveled down from Washington to be here. My dad and I went to see the U.S. National Figure Skating last year, and it was just such a wonderful experience. We were so attached to the skaters, and we were just so excited to see them again next year, and they brought an even better show. So it was so emotional, it was so beautiful.
So how did St. Louis do as the host city? From fans to Olympians to the St. Louis Sports Commission, it was an A+ on the city's report card.
No question. You guys did everything right with this. The organization, all of the city involvement to pull this off, the hotels, the arena, everybody. And what struck me is how helpful everybody is.
And the crowd has been awesome. They know skating. I mean, St. Louis has done a great job. And I have to tell you, this is the first time since before COVID that a national championship has had a full house.
The skating experience went beyond Enterprise Center. The Gateway Arch Park Foundation extended Winterfest for skating under the best view of the arch. The St. Louis Sports Commission is hoping this isn't the last time we host.
We have a bid in for 2030 right now, and my hope is this positions us well to get the event back.
Overall, it was a special moment for the city and beyond.
It's a celebration of our sport and our industry, and to see the United States so competitive and so many of the disciplines. It's an exciting time for the United States, for the Olympic movement, and for skating fans in this country.
Reporting in St. Louis, Laura Barcheski, 5 on your side.
And we'll have a full wrap-up of this weekend's U.S. Figure Skating Championships coming up in about 25 minutes on Sports Plus. There are a lot of familiar faces in town for the Figure Skating Championships, like NBC's Hoda Kotb. We woke up to Hoda for years on the Today Show, but she stepped back last year to start her own wellness company and to try to spread kindness around the country. But she's still a Today Show contributor and loves covering athletes at the height of their powers.
One day we're going to go, who is that again? And the next day we're going to say, oh my God, I remember watching them at the Olympic Games. So I think there's something about people who focus all of their energies and efforts on one thing, and it comes down to 10 seconds, 2-minute routine, and I get to bear witness.
And just like she was in Paris, Hoda will be part of NBC's Olympic coverage next month in Italy. You can find my entire interview with Hoda on KSDK.com and our free streaming app. And Hoda has the first sit-down interviews with the U.S. figure skating team. You can watch it tomorrow morning on the Today Show following today in St. Louis. And 5 on your side's Corey Miller is also headed to Milan Cortina. You can look for his live reports from Italy starting next month. All right, turning now to the weather impact forecast. A chilly January night across St. Louis. Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell is tracking a brief warm-up before a winter reality check.
You know, it seems like this time of year, Mike, we tend to get those reality checks, and another one's on the way later this week. We certainly cooled down a bit this weekend. Today we were at 39. We have slid back to 30 degrees in St. Louis. Skies are mostly clear. We're effectively under high pressure right now. Some of the outlying areas, because the winds are light, Salem, Chesterfield, Mount Vernon, down around 20 degrees. I don't think we're going to drop a whole lot more tonight in those cold spots, but we will drop another few degrees in St. Louis, but not as cold as last night. We were down to 25 this morning. We're at 30 right now. You're going to head out the door tomorrow morning with temperatures that rise quickly under a bright sky with a southwest breeze. We're headed back to around 50 by 1 o'clock, low 50s tomorrow afternoon. Your next 7 days, how about 60 on Tuesday? These are the 2 days this week where you want to get outside and do something outside. Maybe you have some lights, decorations you need to take down. By Wednesday, temperatures are going down. Thursday, only around freezing. Weekend temperatures around freezing. Will we mix any moisture with that cold air? We'll see in about 10 minutes.
Tonight, Illinois State Police are investigating after a St. Clair County Sheriff's deputy shot a man they say was armed with a gun. Deputies were called to a neighborhood off Old Collinsville Road in Swansea around 7 this morning for reports of a stabbing. Investigators say when they arrived, a man walking in the road displayed a gun. A deputy shot the man. He was taken to the hospital with critical injuries. No deputies were hurt. Tonight, we're working to get more information on a deadly shooting in South St. Louis. Right now, all we know is that one man was shot and killed at the Chapel View Apartments on Michigan Avenue. That's right behind St. Anthony of Padua Catholic Church and Confluence Academy in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood. No word yet on any arrests or a motive. A frightening scene unfolded in Los Angeles tonight when someone drove a U-Haul truck into an anti-Iranian government protest. Angered demonstrators surrounded the truck. Police arrested the driver. 2 people, including the driver, suffered minor injuries. Dozens of people gathered this morning outside the old courthouse in downtown St. Louis to condemn Iran's government and what they're calling a humanitarian crisis. Human rights groups say Iranian authorities have killed more than 500 demonstrators in the country over the last 2 weeks. President Trump says the U.S. might take action. And hours ago, protesters hit the streets across the country, including St. Louis, in response to the shooting death of Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis last week. 5 on your side's Melanie Johnson reports from the front lines in Clayton, where hundreds filled the streets to say ICE out for good.
A national call for action, bringing a crowd chanting for change in Clayton. The march, ICE out for good, taking over Shaw Park Sunday as hundreds of protesters rallied to protect immigrants and human rights.
The people united will never be defeated.
The violence, them giving ICE full power to do whatever they want, no due process. That's what we're protesting today.
Protesters blocking off this entire street in Clayton, saying they want accountability against the Trump administration and to ban ICE in America.
Get ICE out of America.
Tom Rodell's sign reads, "This is not normal."
I'm out here to protest in favor of democracy and against tyranny and the changes that have taken place in America with the Trump regime. It's just not anything that we recognize, certainly nothing that I recognize in my 51 years of life.
We are not going to stand for this, and that immigrants belong in this country, and that we're going to stand for them.
ICE out and no more killing, written on this poster in the wake of the death of Renee Nicole Good. The woman shot and killed by an ICE agent in Minneapolis. The Trump administration says the ICE agent fired in self-defense.
You got a woman behind the wheel of a 4,000-pound vehicle, revving her engine, going towards you. I truly believe this officer, in his mind, thought his life was in danger, which allows him to use lethal force.
As protesters stand united, demanding answers.
It's a plea to Americans to remember what things had been like for most of our lives. There was rule of law. There was accountability.
In St. Louis County, Melanie Johnson, 5 on your side.
The Trump administration has called the actions of Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis an act of domestic terrorism. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry is calling for the federal government to allow state agencies to help investigate the shooting.
Opening doors and opening hearts and minds.
Our kids do not have to earn their way into the classroom with the typical students.
Tonight, one family's mission to transform Catholic education in St. Louis to ensure no student is left behind. A 270 timeline.
fantastic. It is the most heavily traveled bridge in the state of Missouri.
Tonight, the ETA on fixing the log jam at Ladue Road.
The weather pattern is not jammed up as several surges of cold air will arrive this week. The question is how much moisture is available as the colder air comes in. We're tracking the odds of measurable snow in your weather impact forecast.
Making a Difference is sponsored by Midwest Bank Center.
Some of the most powerful changes don't start with a big plan. They start with one kid and a question. Tonight, the St. Louis family that asked that question and changed classrooms across the region. In tonight's Making a Difference report, the program that shows us what belonging really means.
Won't need your Chromebooks today, but you will need your notes packet out.
Some students need a little extra help to be exactly where they belong.
So if you flip the first page over.
At St. Mary's Southside Catholic High School, Christopher Armitage is a sophomore. He's also the reason a small idea in St. Louis became something much bigger. Christopher has Down syndrome, and before he was even born, his parents were preparing for uncertainty.
Chris had Down syndrome, but he also had a pretty significant brain abnormality. He also had a very significant heart defect.
Once Christopher started healing, the question changed. Where would he belong?
I also really wanted a faith-based education for Chris, and that was not available in St. Louis.
So Tony and Leanne didn't just hope for change, they built it. In 2015, they started One Classroom, helping students with special needs attend Catholic schools across the Archdiocese of St. Louis. What began with 2 students now reaches more than 28 schools and 110 students.
Do you have to be a lawyer to be a justice?
At St. Mary's, inclusion starts with understanding.
Every teacher has to modify their class to meet the needs of their students. So Chris's is just a little different. Even though he needs unique modifications, it does not mean that these modifications are going to be barriers for him to be part of my classroom.
Which 2 parts are getting added together?
Different work, same expectations. Outside the classroom, Christopher isn't alone.
Oh, you like this granola bar?
16-year-old Xavier Wren is almost always by his side.
I am a peer mentor, so I help Chris when he needs me to. At lunch, around the hallway, and anytime that he's needed.
For Xavier, it's about compassion. For the school's president, it's about redemption. Years ago, at a different school, Mike England had to turn a family away. The mother's words haunted him.
I knew when I was pregnant with my son that this was what the outcome was going to be. And the Catholic Church has told me to have my son. So now that I've done what the Catholic Church told me to do, I can't find a Catholic school that will educate him. Shame on you.
This time, he said yes. Tony and Leanne started One Classroom for One Child, but what they really built was a way in.
Our kids do not have to earn their way into the classroom with the typical students, that it should be okay for them to be in the classroom exactly as they are right now.
So we've got K between J and L.
Sometimes the most important lesson in a school isn't about keeping up.
Did I get to have a high five as you go to lunch?
It's about making sure no one is left out.
I will see you after lunch, okay?
And One Classroom hopes to expand to more schools and more students across the region. A reminder, if you know someone making a difference for others, let me know by email at mbush@ksdk.com. Tonight, St. Louisans braved the cold and got their last taste of a St. Louis favorite for the season. Within the last hour, Ted Drew's frozen custard stand on Chippewa closed for its annual winter break. They do plan to reopen around Valentine's Day for their 97th season. Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell joins us now with the weather impact forecast. And Scott, we're talking about cold temperatures later in the week, but a little warm up before then.
I think tomorrow and Tuesday, temperatures are going to be, well above average. Tuesday especially. We're talking about 60-ish for the high temperature. So what's changed? Tomorrow's going to be a bright day like today, except it's going to be warmer. On Tuesday, there is a little more cloud cover in the mix for sure. But what's changed in the forecast? Well, we've lowered those temperatures from Wednesday on into the weekend, and in some cases pretty dramatically. This is about 3 o'clock Tuesday. Tuesday afternoon, you see the mild air in that lighter green shading. Those are temperatures around 60. Where's the cold air? It's up to the north. Here it comes. We get a little taste of it early Wednesday, but Wednesday's cold, and then Wednesday night into early Thursday morning, that's when temperatures for some of us may actually drop back into the teens. So that's a bit of an adjustment for us once again. It's up, down. You're going to see that this week, especially with the temperatures going up as we get reinforcing shots of cold air. Why? Because the active weather pattern that's driving into the Pacific here, especially into Western Canada, is evolving into yet another deep dip in the jet stream that's going to allow that cold air to spill our way. The first taste of it, it arrives on Wednesday and into Thursday. There's a little break Friday, but then Friday night into Saturday and on into Sunday and Monday. We just keep those surges of cold air coming, so temperatures will be below average here over the next few days. Once we get past Tuesday, it looks like a colder than average pattern. Monday and Tuesday, quiet weather days. You're doing construction, working outside, maybe you want to take down your decorations. Those are your days. Wednesday, well, the breeze is a cold one. Temperatures will drop in the afternoon, and by Thursday morning, some of us will be in the teens, only around freezing Thursday, as well as Saturday and into Sunday. Now let's talk about some snow here. We have the colder air coming in this weekend, so what's the probability of us seeing some snow? Well, we looked at the models this morning. So the American model, the European model, the Canadian model, they have what we call an ensemble. So they run a whole bunch of versions of these models, and then you average them out and look at the percentage. So the ensemble snow probability for 1 inch or more in 24 hours in St. Louis from the American model this weekend is about 20%. The Canadian model is about 20%. Europeans less than 10%. Got to tell you, the European's been doing pretty well. So is the Canadian. American, not so much so. Now, next weekend, okay, still cold, but the probabilities of more than an inch or so of snow actually are lower. Those are not high enough for us to really be concerned at this point, but it will be cold enough for snow. Not tomorrow, though. We're back about 50 or so. Temperatures will rise quickly through the day, and the only thing you'll see during the day tomorrow will be a few high, thin clouds across the region, and that will be about it, as temperatures are expected to top out around 53 and then close to 60 as we head towards Tuesday.
I'm Paul Cook, your traffic guy from Today in St. Louis, and it's time to go on the move. There are loads of ongoing MoDOT projects as we start 2026. The 3 big road projects that are going to continue this year are the Improve I-70 in St. Charles construction project, the I-55 road work in South City and Jefferson County, and finally the work going on at I-270 and Ladue and Conway roads. We talked with Ryan Piercy about MoDOT's plans just about a year ago.
Excessively complex with the amount of traffic. It is the most heavily traveled bridge in the state of Missouri with around a couple 100,000 cars a day. So anytime you are going to be even removing one lane, both northbound and southbound, a lot of the additional pavement's been put in. So you'll have that additional 5th lane going through kind of between where you can merge from going 64 and going northbound all the way up to Olive.
The alternates here are Clayton Road to Ballas Road or Olive if you're coming from the north. The work has been a real headache for drivers in and around Mercy Hospital. The good news is the project is expected to be finished before the end of the summer. So give yourself extra travel time in that area. I'll keep you updated on the changes. Stay safe out there. Paul Cook, 5 on your side.
The Chiefs are moving their kingdom out of Missouri. Now one leader wants to make cacaw the state law.
The St. Louis community is mourning the loss of Ty Davis, truly a trailblazer in our community. We know that he was a chef. He was a big activist in the LGBTQIA community. He was an executive pastry chef at one point in his career. He also owned his own restaurant. He was actually on the Food Network's Chopped. And so he was very prominent in his service and what he did. In fact, we actually covered him on 5 on Your Side here during the COVID-19 pandemic, where he gave out free school lunches to kids during that time. He is going to be remembered, he's going to be missed, and never forgotten.
St. Louis Public Library will partially reopen tomorrow, 1 week after a break-in. Police say a man broke several doors and windows at the bar branch in South City in the early morning hours of January 5th. Public access will be limited to the ground floor as crews continue to make repairs. Book checkout will remain unavailable until further notice. Jennings High School students will have one more week of remote learning. A burst pipe flooded the building over winter break. Students were supposed to return to in-person classes tomorrow. However, the district says more time for repairs is needed. Well, you know, the Kansas City Chiefs are moving across the border to Kansas, and that has a state lawmaker going on the offense. State Senator Nick Schroer of St. Charles County has introduced legislation to change Missouri's official football team from the Chiefs to the St. Louis Battlehawks. Schroer also proposed a bill that would prohibit the Chiefs from receiving tax credits. Well, we're now just 26 days away from the Winter Olympics in Milan Cortina. It all kicks off February 6th with the opening ceremony. And today we learned that Italian tenor Andrea Bocelli will perform. He'll join pop diva Mariah Carey as one of the headliners of the event. Of course, you can watch the opening ceremony right here on 5 on Your Side, coming up very, very quickly. All right, Scott has a final check of the weather impact forecast, and you were kind of talking about the possibility of snow, and it doesn't look like it's going to be a big possibility, even though we're going to get colder later in the week.
We're going to get cold, and I can see flurries. You know, flurries pretty typical, but it doesn't look like there's a big chance for measurable snow. We're certainly not seeing that tonight, but it is pretty cold across the area. Temperatures are going to drop back into the low 20s in the colder spots, right around 20, and mid to upper 20s in town. Tomorrow, bright skies around the St. Louis area, taking those temperatures back up into the 50s. And then we're around 60 degrees on Tuesday before the colder air really settles in here. Mike, we're going to have some gusty winds here Tuesday, but they're warmer gusts than the colder gusts we see on Wednesday and into Thursday. Friday's another gusty breeze day, and then the weekend is going to be just flat out cold.
All right, there you have it. A late edition of 5 on Your Side at 10. Of course, we're always streaming on your phone and smart TV. Don't forget to start your day with Today in St. Louis beginning at 5 a.m.